Here we are, we're taking a look at page 536. Let's do some of the questions from your assignment. For number 14, we have this equation. I'm going to show you two ways to do it. Because we're in the quadratic formula section, we would plug it into the quadratic formula where a is equal to 1, b is equal to 5, and c is equal to 0. Let's plug that in. I get x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root. 5 squared is 25 minus 4 times 1 times 0 all over 2 times 1. I know that negative 4 times 1 times 0 is just 0, so I get negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 is 5 over 2. So my two answers would be negative 5 plus 5 is 0. 0 divided by 2 is 0. Negative 5 minus 5 is negative 10. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Remember the fancy brackets because it's a list of answers. The second way I'm going to show you is back when we were factoring. Because we can take out the greatest common factor, x, we have x times x plus 5. We can set each of these equal to 0. Back when we were factoring, we would do it this way. And that seems like a relatively easy way if we remember to do it. Remember on your test, you're going to have one that you have to do that way, one that you're going to have to do by completing the square, and then you're going to have a bunch where you get to pick how to do them. So don't forget your factoring stuff that you learned a while back. Let's move on to question 15. It says 2x squared plus 3x equals 5. Let's subtract 5 from both sides. I get 2x squared plus 3x minus 5. And we're going to put it into the quadratic formula, so I get x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root. 3 squared is 9 minus 4 times 2 times negative 5, all over 2 times 2. Simplifying that, I get negative 3 plus or minus negative 4 times 2 times negative 5 gives me positive 40, because negative times negative is positive. 40 plus the 9 gives me square root of 49, which is 7 over 2 times 2 is 4. Let's get our two answers. Negative 3 plus 7 is 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Negative 3 minus 7 is negative 10. Negative 10 over 4 would be negative 5 halves. For number 16, the equation they give us is 9a squared plus 4 equals 2a. First thing we got to do is get everything on one side, so I'm going to subtract 2a, which gives me 9a squared minus 2a plus 4 equals 0. Plugging into the quadratic formula, I get a equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root. B squared would be 4, because negative 2 squared is positive 4, minus the 4 times the 9 times the 4, all over 2 times 9. Simplifying here, I get 2 plus or minus negative 4 times 9 is 36. 36 times 4 gives me 144, but it's negative. Plus the 4 gives me a negative 140, all over 18. Simplifying this, I know that this is going to be negative 1 times 4 times 35. Bringing out the stuff I can bring out, square root of 4 is 2, square root of negative 1 is I, all over 18. Dividing everything by 2 would give me 1 plus or minus I square root of 35 over 9. The next one we're going to do is question number 17. It says 6x squared plus 7 equals 5x minus the 5x from both sides. I get 6x squared minus 5x plus 7 equals 0. Plugging it into the quadratic formula, I get x equals negative 5 would be plus 5, plus or minus the square root. Negative 5 squared is 25 minus 4 times 6 times 7, all over 2 times 6. Let's do some simplifying. 4 42, 84, 168. 25 minus 168, I get negative 143. So, and I don't think that can be factored because that's 13 times 11. Both of those are prime. So I'm going to say square root of negative 143 over 12. Oh yeah, there's something I can simplify. I'm going to bring that negative out. So I square at 143 over 12. Got to remember to bring the I out if there's a negative there. Number 18. I have 2x minus 3 quantity squared equals x. When I square something, it's like foiling it by itself and then squaring the other side. So I'm going to have, when I FOIL, 4x squared, outside times outside, inside times inside, last times last. When I square the x, I get x squared, so I'm going to minus the x squared from both sides, which gives me 3x squared minus 12x plus 9 equals 0. I want to divide everything by 3 because if I can simplify, I do simplify. Now, if you remember from factoring, if I wanted to factor this, this would be x minus 3, x minus 1. That'd be pretty simple. But since it's in the quadratic section, we're going to plug it in. So I get x equals negative negative 4 plus or minus the square root. Negative 4 squared is 16 minus 4 times 1 times 3 all over 2 times 1. Simplifying that, I get 4 plus or minus, this is 12. 16 minus 12 is 4. Square root of 12, square root of 4 is 2. So 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 4 minus 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. The next one we're going to do is question number 19. It says, the cadets throw their hats in the air. We have the formula, negative 16t squared plus 30t plus 6. In this case, our 16 is negative. We know that's true in this formula because of gravity pulling towards the Earth and their hats being thrown in the air, so that's why it's negative. They asked us what's happening at 1 second. Well, the time is 1 second, so we're going to put t in for 1. So I get negative 16 times 1 squared plus 30 times 1 plus 6. 1 squared is 1 times negative 16 is negative 16 plus 30 gives me 14 plus the 6. So I know at 1 second we are now at 20 feet, or the hat is at 20 feet. And then it says, what happens when it hits the ground? How long does it take to hit the ground? Well, the height here, the distance at time t, we want that to be 0 because when the hat hits the ground, it's at height 0. So I'm going to have 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 30t plus 6. Before I start plugging it into the quadratic formula, I'm going to simplify by dividing the whole thing by 2, which gives me negative 8t squared plus 15t plus 3. Because I can simplify, I do simplify. So let's plug into the quadratic formula. Most of the time we're going to move these to the other side because we want the squared term to be negative, but we're going to leave it this way just to show you why. I get t equals negative 15 plus or minus the square root. 15 squared is 225 minus 4 times negative 8 times 3 all over 2 times negative 8. Simplifying here, I get negative 15 plus or minus 32 times 3, negative times negative is positive, gives me 96. 96 and 225 gives me 1, 2, 3. The square root of 321. I'm going to need some help on that one. Somebody please get that for me. When I get negative 15 plus or minus the square root of 321, so 17.916 all over negative 16. Most of the time when we're doing this, we avoid the negative root because that gives us a negative number on the top. But I'm going to get rid of the positive root because positive divided by negative is negative, and we don't want a negative answer, so I have to go after the negative root on the top, which gives me negative 32.916 divided by negative 16, which gives me a positive 2.1 seconds. That's why we try to avoid the negative in the bottom, because we try to avoid negative roots, and when we avoid the negative root on top, we get the wrong answer. Last one we're going to do is question number 20. Number 20 says, the hypotenuse of an isosceles right triangle is 6 longer than the legs. So if the legs are x, then the hypotenuse is x plus 6. Let's plug it into the Pythagorean theorem, giving me x squared plus x squared equals x plus 6 squared. I get 2x squared equals, when I square a binomial, I have to FOIL it out. First times first, outside times outside, inside times inside, last times last. I'm going to subtract the x squared. I'm going to subtract the 12x. And I'm going to subtract the 36. When I do that, I get x squared minus 12x minus 36 equals 0. Plug it into the quadratic formula. I get x equals negative 12 plus or minus the square root. Negative 12 squared is 144 minus 4 times 1 times negative 36 all over 2 times 1. I know when negative times negative is positive, so I'm going to add 144 to 144, which gives me 288. Simplifying that, I know this is 144 times 2, so I'm going to go 12 plus or minus 12 root 2 over 2, divide everything by 2. 6 plus or minus 6 square roots of 2 over 2. Nope, not over 2 anymore, because I divided by 2. Do I want the negative root? Nope. We only want the positive root because it is in centimeters. So we're going to put that in centimeters. That's the side length. Thank you.